Diversity. This is a complex concept. This interconnection of different actors interacting together, different shapes, different ways to see the life, different ways to interact with someone. It's hard to define, actually, diversity. But let's consider that, this complex interconnection with complex actors interacting together. This is it. It's really hard to understand what is that, actually. And we have discussed a lot about how to make products and services more diverse. So it's complicated in the beginning. And even over the last design conference, we have discussed a lot about that. So what is happening? Why it's so hard to achieve that sense of diversity? And I came from Brazil. Brazil is a pretty diverse country, isn't it? I'm living there and I can feel that. However, even there, it's super hard to construct the products and services considering that. So I was wondering about, this is not about the ecosystem we are living in. It's our decision to make it more diverse. So let's talk about that. Maybe we can learn together something. I live in Natal. It's a city in the northeast of Brazil, actually. And it's a wonderful place, I would say. I won't show you photographs, otherwise we would be here discussing about how to get there and such things. But it's really beautiful. I have a friend of mine. He has, I believe, the best definition for Natal and the state of Rio Grande do Norte. He says, it's a beautiful place to be born and die, but the problem is to understand what to do in between, you see? So it's, but it's unfair. Trust me, it's unfair. Sometimes remarkable things happen. We have Angicos. It's a small town, distant 150 kilometers away from where I live. And there, in 1963, we had Paulo Freire conducting experiments, super important experience, remarkable experience. So sometimes remarkable things happen. And actually, the experiments he conducted there inspired him to write down the Pedagogy of the Oppressed, his masterpiece. So I'm so connected to that universe. I can see the people there. And he conducted this literacy experiment, right? He literate 300 people in 40 hours using a participative approach. It's really interesting to see. And here we have some photographs, people enjoying and interacting together from Angicos 60 years ago. And we have this Experiência de Angicos, or Angicos experience. And I was wondering, well, maybe we can learn something from that, because Freire was all about diversity and inclusion. Maybe we can learn from them, from their experience. So I was wondering how to empower diversity and inclusion in the design process. It's so similar, actually. It's funny to see the similarities between Freire approach and the participative approach for the design process. And actually, we have some concepts to discuss. And I would love to be with you discussing about centralization, because I believe this is key to understand how to make things more diverse. In one hand, we have centralization. When I say centralization, I'm referring to that sense of, I have the answers. I understand what you need, and I can create something for you. Basically that. But we also have the decentralization, the opposite, right? Because there we can make things together. It's a different approach, indeed. But we have this basically scale, right? It's important to say that we are between those concepts when we are creating something. It's important, probably by the end of this presentation, to realize where I am. You see, here. It's important to realize that. Let's talk about centralization. To discuss centralization, I believe we have three main concepts. We have centrality, we have empathy, and we have diversity. We are using those concepts to make it more centralized or not. Let me show you. Centrality. When we say centrality, I'm referring to egocentrality, actually. That sense of, I have the answer. I can construct something because I understand your context. You don't need to talk to me because I can feel what you need. Basically that. And the user centrality, it's interconnected to that because user centrality is all about you don't need to talk because I can feel exactly what you need. Just wait. And because of that, we have created the superheroes, the super designers, using UX to create something for them, for people, without necessarily talking to them. It's weird to say that, but this is it. And we have discussed that a lot over the last years. And at the same time, we are discussing about how to make things more diverse. But please understand that here we have two antagonic forces working, centrality and diversity. And it's common to hear that. Super designers are used to say, I can understand you because I have this superpower. It's almost like that. It's a superpower for them to understand what people feel, and we know it's impossible to be on the others people's shoes, exactly feeling exactly like them. We are discussing a fallacy when we say that I can be on your position. No, we can't. It's impossible. Empathy, it's a really important concept for human beings, but in the design field, we have this distortion, I would say. I call it pseudo-empathy, actually. It's not real. At the same time, we also have diversity as a superpower because I have the ability to select diversity. Unfortunately, we can't do that. It's impossible to select diversity. Diversity is something that if you try to hold, you're going to miss. So I call it pseudo-diversity as well. It's almost like that. I'm going to select something from the diversity. It looks like diversity, but it's not, because actually I selected that from the reality. I'm mimicking diversity. That's the reality. It's not a problem, I would say. If I am aware of it and I want to be more diverse, that's the way we do, actually. That's the way we have to do it. No problem. I believe it's important to be aware of it and trying to be more diverse as possible. And this is controversial, I know. But when we say, I am a user-centered designer, actually, we are doing that. I'm selecting the diversity, focusing on users, but not necessarily a great sample for diversity. I believe that if there is selection about who is relevant to the project, there is a selection of diversity. So it's a pseudo-diversity. And we have centrality interacting with pseudo-empathy, with pseudo-diversity, and we are here, you see, discussing about how to make it more diverse, but at the same time, I'll be constructing something for you. I will select what you need. You see, I'm going to define what you need. So, as I said, we are working with two antagonic forces, just to think about. But on the other hand, we also have decentralization. And decentralization is all about participation. And we have the Scandinavian design as a reference for us. And the Utopia project is also super important because basically by the end of the 90s, they created this method working with professionals who were like concerned about the introduction of computers in the workplace and maybe, wow, we are going to be replaced. And then they decided to construct something together to realize how to do it, how to improve actually the job using computers. And this is super important for the participatory design approach from Scandinavia, I would like to say. And for us, for sure, it's a great method. And this is a presentation from Pelling, one of the creators of this approach from Sweden. And talking to students in Malmö University in Sweden, he explained the importance of Paulo Freire, actually, to create the participatory design approach in Scandinavia at that time. So they read the Pedagogy of the Oppressed. And then I thought to myself, what is that? What I'm missing? This is here, from here. And then we have this context in terms of, okay, democracy, they were wondering about that, but also political change and technology. And they read Paulo Freire and created that approach. So this is amazing. And here we have Paulo Freire watching us, maybe wondering, wow, what is that? This is so fantastic. And because of that, I was wondering about this, I would say, an ethical and philosophical approach to consider diversity, considering Paulo Freire approach, actually. Because when we talk about Paulo Freire, we talk about problem-posing education instead of banking education. And maybe we are talking about banking design when we are creating something focusing on users. It's important to nullify centralities in that sense, because this is all about Paulo Freire approach. And maybe when we do that, we are actually dissolving the relevance of super designers, that one who can say, I can construct something for you. And we are also practicing the real empathy that recognizes the importance of others. It's a different approach. And also we are implementing the genuine diversity, I believe, because of that, of course. But dissolving the relevance of the super designer is tricky, because actually we are dissolving this position of super, right? It's a power position, actually. So it's hard to fight against that. But we need to start. So maybe we can start by emphasizing participation. It's all about that, actually, bringing people together. Instead of saying, I can construct something for you, no, let's construct together something. You have the knowledge. My empathy is all about understanding your knowledge, your universe. So bring it, because I don't have that, actually. My empathy is to understand that you are important for the design process. This the dialogical process, of course, it's all about Paulo Freire as well, as it is in the design, the participative approach from the Scandinavian designer. And also it's about empowerment. And the best part, I believe, it's about contextualization. because instead of understanding contexts, no, I want to learn from them about their context. It's a different approach because of that. We are practicing real empathy. Freire was all about that, actually. As I said, he never mentioned empathy, the term, but it's all about that. The importance of understanding, dialogue, and mutual respect in education as it is in design, let's assume. Promoting a collaborative and meaningful learning environment. This is the same thing, actually. Let's construct that in the design side. And also, educators and the students, we can understand, like designers and maybe users or those who would be affected by decisions, we are going to learn together. We are going to be interacting to learn together. And we have participation as something really, really important. But the true empathy, not that pseudo-empathy. It's about creating a safe environment for them to express themselves freely. This is exactly what we need to consider diversity. And also, it's about valuing and taking into consideration their knowledge. We are implementing genuine diversity when we do that. Freire's concept, it's important to realize that it's all about conscientização in Portuguese, and empower marginalized and oppressed individuals. This is really, really powerful. We have something to learn from that. Of course, we are bringing people together, creating with different backgrounds and knowledge. And important to mention about selecting participants, because actually Freire never selected specific participants. Actually, he was welcoming everyone. So this is super important. It's a game-changing, I believe, in the design field, to think with that mindset. And it's about inclusion as well, because we are articulating diversity, genuine empathy, knowledge. It's all about that. And here I have this approach where I'm trying to bring the design to something tangible. I'm not creating something new, actually. I like saying that. Actually, I'm trying to describe the design process and incorporating some aspects in terms of diversity, inclusion, in this shape. Of course, we have the phases here: understanding, ideating, prototyping, and validating, same thing. And we also have people interacting together. This is super important, including non-users, because they also have something to share. We are so focused on users, but we are missing something when we are avoiding non-users. Why? We can construct something actually considering them. And in fact, we are affecting their space. When we are creating something for users, we are affecting non-users as a consequence. And nowadays, we also have AI. I consider AI a new co-designer, actually. Bringing tools, bringing methods. It's possible. And we are together and simultaneously creating something at the same time. This is it. And typically, we start the design process by understanding something. That's the purple color. But it's also possible to start the design process maybe validating or prototyping. Here and there, I'm starting, you see, sketching something. So I wanted to represent this flexibility as well. And we have the next phase. We are always going further. Maybe returning, not returning, but going to another understanding phase, because there we are going to have different approach, different knowledge, of course. And this is the shape, just for you to understand. This evolutionary process articulating those moments, actually, this is the way I call. And If we can separate each moment, we are going to see that we have this vertical dimension, basically that, with a bunch of possibilities. Actually, that's the reason why some people, I would say, feel design is so complex, because they are trying to understand the whole complexity here. But it's not necessary. I like saying that for beginners. You need to explore. You need to learn by doing, actually. It's important to study. It's important to read about those possibilities, but you're going to feel the best moment to do that. We have the same for the others. Moments, same thing. Possibilities inside each of them. Validating, the same thing. Methods and techniques and tools. And we have this delta. I consider that the evolutionary feeling. Sometimes we are constructing something, and at some point we have something new, and if you look at behind, you're going to say, wow, this is so unfeasible or something, you see? And now you have the better solution. And after that, you have another one. You have this feeling probably working on design. So, just to finalize, we have to dissolve centralities, not appropriating someone else's lived experience. Actually, this is what people typically consider empathy. And act on diversity instead of just talking about diversity, because we are here discussing, wow, this is so important, but what are we doing to bring that? The nature of design is being diverse and inclusive. If it is not that, we are doing something different. It's not design, because design is diverse and inclusive. And then we have the scale here to think about where are we here. So I think it's a chance to think about that as well. What's your position? So, thank you.